Robert Kennedy Sr. once said, "We look not for a slavish commitment to the party from the people, but a moral commitment to the people from the party." Think about that. That's long gone. Once the party of free speech, the Democrats are now the party of censorship and coercion. Kennedy's Democrats were anti-war. Harris's Democrats are NeoCon warmongers. Her vice president, Tim Walz, is a war dodger. Once the party of first responders and physical laborers, the Democrats are now the party of big tech, big banks, and Wall Street. Once the party of voting rights and fair elections, the Democrats are now the party of lawfare and coronation by corporate donors by unknown members of the party's central committee. As for Republicans, Trump is a billionaire, backed by billionaires who mimic the pain of working people while lining their pockets. You telling me Ted Cruz is a populist? Runaway spending and tax cuts for the wealthy and corporations didn't help Main Street, it helped Wall Street. That's your Republican Party. Nicole Shanahan, Bobby Kennedy Jr.'s running mate, has floated the idea that the Dems are so corrupt that they forced them out of the race as independents and that they may now push their support towards Trump. That's interesting. So that leaves us with two choices. Now remember, the lesser of two evils, the old trope goes. Except you should remember, the lesser of two evils is still evil.
Live from downtown Detroit, it's the No Bullshit News Hour with my main man, Charlie LeDuff and Karen Dumas.
It's just it, breaking news. No more bullshit. No more bullshit.
That gave you goose pimples, Rick?
Yeah, that was the ending was great, and the whole commentary is great because it's true. It don't matter who we got; they all evil.
And we lose. That's the thing. We lose, and people don't understand that. If you just take a minute and look back, what have we gotten? Nothing.
Peanuts. So you know what? They're look. The Democrats have run Washington for 12 of the last 16 years. And even those 4 years when the Republicans had control of Washington, it was Russiagate, lawfare. So we're spinning in the toilet, and with the party, neither party has ideas. And now you look at Kamala Harris, won't give an interview, won't lay anything out, cribbing Trump's ideas like, no tax on tips. I don't know how we balance federal budget with no tax on tips. You work, you should get taxed, right? If we're all going to get taxed. Child tax credit. You have a kid, they send you a check, right? But then she finally comes out with it, and it gets universally panned of food's too high, so we're going to have price controls. If the government comes in and sees you're charging too much for food, they're going to fine you, whatever they're going to do, throw you in jail. I don't know what the plan is. There is no real plan. And then the $25,000 for a down payment on a house. Mm-hmm. Now, all they're going to do is take that 25 grand and add it to the price of the house. And right, it's just, it's giving the owner.
That Duggan is taking credit for. He said that, that they're duplicating that Kamala Harris is duplicating his model for the creation of affordable housing in Detroit. That has now become part of the
He's a
national
fucking
conversation.
liar. What affordable housing?
First of all, as a poor person, where in the hell am I going to get $25,000 to put on a house?
You're going to give from the government. That doesn't have it.
Okay,
and then, if you don't have, that means you're not a good credit risk, right? That means you don't have 25,000
at all.
So what if you fall behind on your mortgage? What's that mean in a year?
Mm-hmm. I lost a house that I couldn't afford to get in the first place.
We tried that back at the turn of the century. Remember, like the federal government, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are going to back insurance for subprime borrowers. It collapsed. Wall Street took advantage of it. You know what I mean? Everybody's getting a house, and then we're left here now, today, right now. That consequence, we borrowed trillions every year since 2008 to keep this rotten economy going. We've been, I say, minimum a deep recession for 15 years. So anyway, Kamala Harris is getting panned as basically communism. So I'm like, communistic economic plans. Who would better know about communistic economy than our old friend, Professor Richard D. Wolff, a professor of economics emeritus from the University of Massachusetts, author out now of the book Understanding Capitalism. So basically, it's like Shakespeare. You can't understand Shakespeare, so they make a Shakespeare in Love with Gwyneth Paltrow.
Okay.
Right. So basically, what Richard's written here is Das Kapital for dummies.
So like Cliff Notes?
Yes. Okay. Well, accessibility.
All right.
Richard has been called by the New York Times the preeminent American Marxist economist. Good to see you again, Rich.
Good to see you, Charlie, and I loved your introduction. I'd love to be able to comment on it.
Go with that.
All right. I'm going to be a teacher. I am a professor. I've done that all my life. So allow me to be a teacher just for a couple of minutes. I love particularly attacking Kamala Harris for being a communist, which means you don't know what the word means, because otherwise, you might as well call her a Martian or something else that you made up last night when you were drinking too much. Let me explain. 38 out of the 50 states of the United States already have laws on the books that limit price gouging. It's not a new idea. It's not a communist idea. It's something people do and demand when the employers of this country jack up the prices, taking advantage of whatever the situation is to try to make a fast extra buck. And they're so out of control, and they've been that way for many years, that governments across this country, 38 out of 50 states, now have on the books, and many of them have had it on the books for decades, laws against it. I'll give you a couple of examples. During the hurricanes in Louisiana, people who make bottled water jack up the price. Stores that sell bottled water jack up the price. Why? Because the regular water system is polluted because of the flooding and stuff like that, and people have to have water. It's for life. And so they'll pay $5 for a little, a bottle of water they hope is clean and safe. I won't even go into what people will do to produce tainted water and sell it as if it were pure. So there are laws on the books in Louisiana about that. Right now, I'll give you another example. In the courts of Florida, there are all kinds of cases. And I picked Florida because it's got a right-wing Republican governor. But he is pursuing people who gouged during various climate problems or hot temperatures and took advantage of people and jacked up the prices of all kinds of things, which that Republican, Mr. DeSantis, took offense at. The people of Florida demanded it. They have done that before. And so they have law cases going against the employers who raise the prices to take advantage of a difficult situation people were in. That's as old as the United States. For Republicans to call Kamala Harris a communist because she has the idea we ought to do that now that we're in a bad inflation and have been in one for a couple of years, just shows how ignorant so many of those folks are.
Well, let me get more ignorant. Let me get ignorant then. Okay, so you're talking about natural disasters, hurricanes, flooding, forest fires. But when we look at the price of food, on average, right, the grocery chains, you can look up their stock price or whatever, their margin, their profit margin is 2%. What I look at from the government is an emergency they created because when you're hostile to gasoline and diesel, right, the price goes up. That's up 50%. When you are a warmongering party and you're enticing or whatever happened in Russia, Ukraine, over 50% of the world's fertilizer is coming from a war zone. So the political decisions they're making about fossil fuels and Putin and war and global strategy has led to the fact that people can more and more afford less and less food. You agree with that?
That's part of the story. Absolutely.
You
That's
give me a
part
B
of
on
the
that,
story.
Professor? Do I get a B?
I'll give you a B.
Thank
Let me
you.
give you a bigger part of it. Let me give you a bigger part of the story. We had a terrible pandemic. You know all about that. It lasted 2 or 3 years. During that time, almost half the American working class lost their job. Some only for a few weeks, some for many, many months, and even a couple of years. One of the things that had to be done to save this economy from the worst depression it would have ever had, even worse than the 1930s, was that the government came in, as you well know, and pumped tons of money. Gave money to corporations, gave money to businesses, gave unemployed people extra money in their unemployment check, all of that. Flooded the economy with money.
Yes.
And you know, when you have extra money in the economy like that, one of the things every employer knows is I've got 2 choices now. My customers got more money in their pocket because of all this pandemic government largesse. I got 2 choices. I can either raise the prices of what I have to sell because I now know they got the money in their wallet to pay for it, or I can soak up that extra money they have by ordering more goods and selling them more without raising the price. But what's the most profitable route the employer chooses? The first one. It's quicker, it's easier, it's less risky. Jack up the price. The employers, the reason we have an inflation after the pandemic is because employers saw an opportunity, doesn't come along that often, to jack the price. That's why eggs cost 50% more than they used to. That's why. It's not because the chicken having a harder time laying the egg. This is about a
But it was.
maneuver. Yeah,
But it was.
I
But
know.
egg production was down.
I
You
don't-
could say corporations brought it down purposely, but there was avian flu.
But they talked about the supply chain and disruption and all those other factors. But even though those have been corrected or restored,
I know,
we're
I
still.
know you're going to make a point. I want to throw this in
That's okay, go ahead.
before
No, go ahead.
the regular person question you're going to ask.
Why I gotta be right?
When Biden came in April of 2021, and we had that huge $2 trillion stimulus package. I watched it, Richard. I watched it. Everybody got the check. Everybody went to the keyboard. Everybody went, I want it, I want it, I want it. And we all went click, 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 click. In China, they put it all on the boats all at once. It got to the port of LA. There weren't enough guys at the port of LA to take the shit off. They called it supply chain fuck up. The train never crashed. It was, we all wanted basically free shit all at once. And the price went up because we all wanted it. And prices never go down, Karen.
Right, and that's what I was saying, that the prices have not adjusted based on the return to any degree of normalcy.
So you
Carly,
Text me.
let me put on my teacher hat again, okay? Just for a moment.
this guy's talking down to me.
I don't want to be reprimanded.
I'm scared to speak.
I know.
He's got a book on economics all of a sudden.
Listen, don't worry, there are no grades, so you don't have to worry. You're going to pass in any case.
Because I'm an American, Richard, and I don't really care about learning it. What's my grade, Professor? But go ahead, I
Right,
apologize.
exactly. I love this stuff about the supply chain. I mean, please, that's right up there with the Tooth Fairy and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. It's okay if you're 5 years old, but if you're an adult, you shouldn't be playing with those concepts anymore. They're not appropriate. Let me explain. Every major business in this country, sizable business, has something called the purchasing department, typically run by a purchasing manager or a purchasing executive. The job of that person and all the people working with him or her in the purchasing department who get fat salaries is to make sure that if there's an interruption of any kind with anything that's an input to the business, what we nowadays fancifully call the supply chain, it's the job of the purchasing department to have a plan B, a plan C to do it. if in some, for example, so if there's a big problem, some input, let's say you're a shoemaker and the leather isn't arriving at the warehouse to be worked up into shoes, the CEO calls in the purchasing manager and says to the purchasing manager, what the hell's going on here? We don't have the leather that we need, plus whatever else it is. If the purchasing manager turns around and says to the CEO, well, sir, there are supply chain problems, he'll be fired. That's his job, is to figure out in advance what you do. All that happened, my fellow Americans, is that the corporations who took advantage of the pandemic layout to jack up the prices because they had a chance to, didn't want to be the honest people they could have been and said, that's what we just did. We raised the prices to make more profits, which, by the way, their profits show. They didn't. They needed to come up with somebody else to blame because they want it all. They want to be able to have more profits. They want to be able to raise the price to get them. And they don't want anyone mad at them for doing what they're doing. So they look at somebody else. It's just a scapegoat. Yellow supply chain. What a wonderful idea. Who the hell knows what that is or where it is or who he is? But it's not the employer. It's not the actual guy who raised the price. Oh no, they walk away clean. No flies on them. We're all looking at the supply chain. It's nonsense.
So, teacher,
every time we have a supply chain problem,
let me ask you a quick question, Richard.
A supply chain solution.
Shouldn't the politicians now be really addressing the corporations and companies that took advantage of this?
Yes.
But aren't they the same ones that donate to their campaigns?
Oh, wow.
Exactly,
yeah,
and that's why they don't. Bingo.
Well, we got shit like housing. We don't have enough housing, interest rates. Nobody ever talks about the fact that we printed so much money, which makes inflation go up. You got more money floating out there. The money's worth less, so it's going to cost more to get stuff. We got to raise interest rates. Therefore, people that build houses, it's too expensive to get the inputs to build the houses, right? Instead of 3% for the material, it just went up. You know, your financing charges are 7-8%. You're not going to build shit. Richard, deficit spending. They say that the gross domestic product is growing, but I contend the only reason the economy is growing is because the amount of money the government is borrowing to keep the economy floating is growing. Do you believe that the economic growth is fake?
Yes.
Am I a communist?
You might be. If people find Kamala Harris a communist, they certainly can do the same job on you.
Okay.
You know, here's a joke. I'm actually closer to that than either you or she is, and I don't get that problem.
So, Richard, let's talk a little bit about the impact that this is all having on just the average American, because we are in the middle of an election season, and we're hearing two conflicting messages in terms of the impact that all this is having on going to the grocery store, going to the gas station. I mean, how should consumers just listen to this objectively and compare it to how they live on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I'm afraid, look, I believe there are important differences between the Republicans and the Democrats, but that's not what we're discussing here. But I don't want to be understood as one of the folks who says, well, it's all the same. I don't believe that. I really don't. But having said that, when it comes to economics, I think Charlie is mostly right. The differences are pretty small. The fact of the matter is that if I were asked, what are the two most important problems of the American economy? And look, I've been teaching this for 50 years. I've been asked this question by my students, by thousands, literally thousands of them. The two biggest problems are the gap between rich and poor, which has gotten worse over the last 40 years without interruption across Republican and Democratic presidents, Republican and Democratic Congresses. Mr. Trump didn't make that problem go away. Mr. Biden didn't do it either. And you don't even hear about it. And while I understand we shouldn't tax tips, I get the idea. But that's not going to, that's like passing a person begging on the street who's really in trouble and reaching into your pocket and giving that person a nickel, right? That's insulting. That's not only not responsive, that's a kind of insult. We're not going to solve the problems of inequality in this society, which are all around us, by not taxing tipping, even though I'm in favor of that, and of course, all of that kind of stuff. But to give you just one concreteness, the last time we raised the minimum wage in this country, the federal minimum wage that covers all 330 million of us in this country, was in 2009. That's when it was set at $7.25 an hour, which is what it is as I'm talking to you right now. That's 15 years, every one of which prices went up in this country, sometimes by a little, sometimes by a lot. But every year the prices went up, and every year we said to the poorest people among us, you keep getting the same $7.25 minimum.
But isn't that the basis of this country economically? I mean, that those without sustain those who have?
Yes, and as long as you do that, you get the anger, the bitterness, the rage, and it may not build up for a while, but don't be fooled. It's building up its head of steam right below the surface, and then it blows, and we all wonder, gee, why did it explode? Well, it's because we didn't deal with that problem, and we allowed both parties to look the other way. Here's the second one. We live in a capitalist system, it's part of why I wrote the book, that has as one of its qualities deep instability. We're coming off an inflation, and you know what's coming next down the pike, what everybody's talking about in the Wall Street Journal or the Financial Times? The recession. And you know what we had before the inflation? Another recession.
Let me jump in. We've always been in a recession. It's been called government deficit spending. If you take that out of gross domestic product, the economy's been shrinking year after year. Now I'm looking at both of these dummy parties. Okay, look, Trump says drill, baby, drill. If you nationalize the profits of the top 15 oil companies operating in the United States, that'd be $150 billion. The deficit is $1.6 trillion. If all of that gasoline brought down prices to drive it to the grocery store, if inflation disappeared, that's $750 billion. You're still not getting there. We're not, it's fake. Now it's going to collapse or papering over the maggots. Just get ready for it. Having said that, Richard, we said we'd get you out of here because on a very capitalistic note, he's got to be on another TV show to pimp his new book, which is called Understanding Capitalism. Give the audience, before you go, Richard, a quick 45-second synopsis of what your latest book is.
Okay. Before I do that, let me offer. We'll have a program on deficits. Let's talk about it. It's worth it. The point of the book is to say a lot of what you've heard about capitalism is not true. And you ought to be able to hear not just the cheerleading for it, which both parties do, but a serious critical assessment. That's what this book will offer you. Very hard to get that. And it's all collected here in a way that's easily digestible. That's why I wrote the book.
And where can you get it? At the People's Co-op in Ann Arbor?
No, the easiest way is to go to our website, democracyatwork.info. All one word, democracyatwork.info. It'll tell you exactly how to get the book.
And let me just tell the listeners, of very bright people, independent-minded, even if you think, look, even if you're like, oh, I don't read commie shit. Marxism is the best critic, the best critical analysis of capitalism that there is. There's no doubt about it. You know, I studied it in college. The solution, I'm not so sure. You end up in a train going to Siberia. But having said that, I admire Richard. He's a really smart guy. You know, I mean, the problems are deep. Vote your conscience, and you only got two choices. It's still evil to me. Richard, I know you got to go. Good luck with the book, and I'll talk to you later today.
Thank you, Charlie, and thank you for having the kind of program that opens these questions up. That's a real service, and I'm proud to be part of it.
My man. Okay, now let's do a little capitalism. Here's a word from our sponsors. We'll be back after this.
American Coney Island. So good, even Al Roker from the Today Show eats here. Not like that other guy, Al Joker, who eats at Lafayette. So make sure you're a Roker and not a Joker. American Coney Island.
All right, Mark, you know capitalism is what it is, man. You're living in it.
It's what I just learned, yeah.
You're living in it. Deal with it. And remember that the politicians lie to you. The media lies to you. And how do you know if your investment statements aren't lying to you, Karen?
You don't.
Remember, you don't. You're not managing your wealth. You know who's doing that?
Who?
Some guy for the big bank. He doesn't care about you. He cares about volatility, movement, selling, buying, selling. Every time he makes a move, he makes money while you lose money. Right? You should know your money, man. That's why I work with financial specialist Luke Nowacki at Pinnacle Wealth Strategies. There's a reason they call it Pinnacle Wealth.
Why?
Get to the pinnacle of your wealth. Think about that.
Okay.
He'll tailor a financial plan specifically for you. Come on, man. He's a big friend of the show. I've been talking for years. Think about it, people. You need somebody to walk you through it. Pay attention while you're at work. For your annuities, retirement accounts, college savings plans. My kid's going to college. It was nice. Oh, Benny Mans, he came in from Phillies, busting the balls on my 65 Mustang. And I'm like, I could put 10 grand into the body, but it felt nice to be able to write a check for my daughter's first semester in college, right? Yeah. So you get advice from Luke. He'll keep you up to date and always a phone call away. Let Luke Nowacki worry so you don't have to. Luke Nowacki at 248-663-4748. And if you're an entrepreneur looking for a safe and socially responsible real estate investment, consider contacting Archangel Senior Management. Its senior living is one of the fastest growing markets in America, and Archangel offers small, clean, communal living for senior citizens in homes right inside neighborhoods. It's the antithesis to the cold corporate nursing homes we've all now heard so much about and are scared to be in. Archangel has formed partnerships with the PES School of Nursing and Majestic Residences, a home-based assisted living franchise system. So, you socially responsible investor, the partnership provides authentic caregivers trained with the tools necessary to manage their own home care facilities, small homes, and Archangel investors in that real estate deal can feel secure in both their investment and their care teams and what their money's actually doing. The care is genuine, the owners are local, and Archangel has Overwatch. If interested in this trailblazing opportunity, contact Archangel at 989-614-0416. Again, 989-614-0416. I may be getting involved.
I was trying to figure out how to write that down, but I'll just go back and pull it up because I do want to. Here, let me just take a picture.
Why don't we call and meet with them? We could be partners.
I would like that. I mean, because you have to think we're aging.
Yep.
I mean, we have an aging population.
Oh, wait a minute.
And we talk about what?
No, we're aging, and I don't want to go in one of these.
No.
And if we were investors in such a place, and Archangel is supplying all the care, transportation, pharmacy. But maybe that's where we go when we're old into our own investment.
I'm going to Montego Bay, but this is the thing. the
Indiana?
No, Jamaica. But my thing is the quality, because we've talked a lot on this show about the quality of, or the lack of quality in a lot of the senior residences. And I think that when people have worked all their lives, they've taken care of their families, they've taken care of their communities, they deserve respectable, comfortable, safe,
friendly.
Yeah. I do that. That's something that resonates.
Not on a major street with a huge parking lot, but a home.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
that's
a big difference.
It is. Okay. We have our man on the street in Chicago at the Democratic convention. He's hanging out with the Hamas holes, keeping an eye on the protesters. But before we go to him, didn't Professor Wolf kind of remind you of Tim Walz, the vice presidential candidate? I mean, a little bit. But you know, my thing with Walz is like, what's with the minstrel white guy show, right? Like,
but you got to have one.
I never heard anything but pepper and, hey, have you tried corn nuts? And gee, I don't know how to tie my shoes. He's like, it's like he's playing Rochester to Jack Benny, right? He's Kamala Harris's Rochester. It's like, it's that same old shit we were looking at 50 years ago in reverse.
Yeah.
But everybody tries to like, okay, let's get as much of the commonalities from the voter base that we can in a person. And so you check this box. Let's have somebody to check this box. Hey, we can relate to everybody, and that's unrealistic and unnecessary.
Well, I'm just saying, like, we live in Michigan. It's not too far from Minnesota. You know what I mean?
Right.
How many white guys you know like that? Oh, gee, I've never heard of hot sauce.
Yeah, no, they don't exist like that no more. Everybody love Frank.
How many white guys do you know, Red? Let's
Well, I know half one. That's me.
So wait a minute.
And then of course
And Mark.
and then
With Charlie's a little.
well,
you like curry,
he's more
Mark?
than me.
Charles
so-
like a mixed
Gee whiz. Can we be serious for a minute? Like you can't face anybody. It's just like
He
the
also-
white guy tacos.
He also needs to call Luke Nowacki. I mean, the guy has no investments at that age.
He said he has no investments.
Oh yeah, no, his net worth is like $100,000.
That's another thing.
I
He's a
don't believe-
commie. He loves
I don't believe that.
socialism as being friendly, and
I want to check his mattress.
maybe he should get Wolf's book. He should get Wolf's book. Like, be serious. It's
I don't believe that. I mean, that's part of the BS. Hey, see, I'm struggling. You know, we talked about that before, Charlie. How all these politicians want to act like they know that there's the struggle. They're down with the people.
right.
Now,
I think they should just change the whole election system. Just let them beat each other to death, and then whoever comes out the winner, that's who our new president is for 4 years.
They have changed the whole election system. It's all going to be a pageant made for TV. Right?
Concerts.
We're not voting for anybody. How fucking powerful are the party elites where you can take out the president of the United States, who was actually, the nominee of the party, and the party under Biden locked everybody else out. We don't like it. We don't like. What the fuck is going on?
yeah, people have overlooked that. But hey, so much for democracy.
And you would think protesters, liberal protesters, Democratic protesters, far left protesters, these would be some of the other things they're asking for. Because if you look at Kamala Harris's Middle East strategy, it's just kind of more of the same gobbledygook, right? Lip service, send bombs. And I don't really believe that these protesters' heart is really in it. So we're with Mitch Miller, reporter with the Michigan Enjoiner, friend of the show. He's out there. Hey, how you doing, Mitch?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Good, man. Where the fuck are you? It looks like you're in Peoria.
Yeah, I'm right outside the United Center where the DNC is taking place. It's still pretty early. We're having some people come in, but the protest hasn't started in earnest yet. It'll probably take until later this afternoon until they come out again.
So it's bankers' hours. There's no sit-ins, no tents, no early risers. It's a parking lot, bro.
It's the millennium age of
Yeah.
protesting.
People protest only after lunch.
You've been there a couple of days. What have you seen?
Yeah. So right where I am now is the main entrance. There's a bit of a fortress of fencing and road closures to get in. It's about, I would say, half a mile to actually get into the building. The protests have concentrated in two nearby parks. One is Union Park and the other is 578 Park. On the first day, the protests were largely pro-Palestinian protesters. And they were brought in briefly near the entrance and then shuttled back towards the park. This is sort of typical left of center protest. They're unhappy with the rhetoric of the Democratic Party, which purports to support social justice and humanitarian ideals. They see this as duplicitous, and more or less they're angry about the Democratic Party's complicity in what they say is a genocide, what I've heard referred to as the Kamala cost.
It's a new one.
Yeah. On the second day, things were a little bit more varied. Outside the entrance here, you had PETA. We had the kind of placard and megaphone Christ proselytizers screaming about redemption and renunciation. There was a guy dressed up as the January 6th Viking. So yesterday it was more the kind of American circus of anger and less of the Palestinian protesters, which were here on the previous days.
So the Palestinian contingent, they kind of faded away. Do you think like their hearts are really in it?
No, I would say their hearts are in it. They've had less of a presence here yesterday than the day before. I'm not too sure how it's all being organized, but they do start off in the two parks. And that's where they spend most of their time, more or less speaking to each other. There are some protesters
if they're in the park and they're removed from the immediate DNC footprint, like who's really seeing it? But wasn't that part of the strategy that Chicago took? They asked people that worked in the immediate area, don't show up for work, and everything is, kept away. I mean, what's the impact of them in the park?
And what's the plan? Are you hearing anything? Are they going to storm the temple or not?
No, I think it's going to be fairly pacified. I could be wrong, and someone could show up and demonstrate a little bit of subversion, but I haven't seen anything like that so far. There's been a little jostling, and probably the most animosity or hostility I've seen is between pro-Israeli and pro-Palestinian protesters who sort of just enter into street-side disputations, but nothing too exciting.
There you go, disputations.
I like that.
Let me ask you, in the pro-Palestine contingent, what's the sort of ethnic breakdown of the group?
Well, you do have, I'm not too sure what the percentages are. There is there are a conspicuous number of Middle Eastern or brown people, and then quite a few sort of younger women, the typical social justice votary.
White woman?
Is come up to support
young
the
white
cause.
woman with the complaints?
Yeah, exactly.
And the good handbags?
He's so tactful.
Yes.
Yes, he said yes. Gosh. Okay, well, listen, man. Listen, we got to wrap it up, but I'm worried for you there, okay? Listen. Make sure you don't get hit by the subway train. Don't eat too much fast food, okay? Wear sensible shoes.
Yeah. Yesterday I went to visit the Natural History Museum, and I got on the subway after, and everyone was smoking blunts on the subway, and I thought, why did I pay, $30 to go to the Natural History Museum? I got an entire ecosystem on the subway right now.
This guy needs a microphone.
Right.
Yeah.
American Circus of Anger.
Right.
I like that.
Okay. All right, listen, Mitch, thank you for that scintillating
All right,
report.
We'll document the mental illness for you guys. All right, take care.
Okay. Chicago's on fire in a blaze of apathy. There goes our man in sensible shoes. Power of the people. All right, that's it for the program. Any last thoughts, you two?
Very interesting about the capitalism today. Great. I just hope I can read the damn book.
No, leave all that. Just keep going.
Yeah, I just hope I can afford the book so I can learn more about the capitalism, because it's not working for me at all.
Where's my music, Mark?
What
You don't have Spielberg writes here. This is fucking directing the show. Just put the music on.
Hey, this protest is more fired up than that shit we just saw.
Fucking right.
But that speaks to how everything is so controlled.
Yes.
Like, once upon a time when people were protesting, they were fired up and they were saying they'd come after lunch. And I mean, if I'm not coming if it's raining. And
It's a half mile away and it's before noon.
Yeah. And who's seeing it? Like, what impact is that having?
Concert lines seem to have more turnout than protests do nowadays.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus. God, I'm not going to say we're doomed, but I need a drink. See you next week.